Hare Krishna, welcome to our Bhagavad Tattva series, where we will understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a clear, structured, and systematic way, grounded in, based on Bhagavad Gītā, Śrīmad Bhagavatam, and Vedic literature, as taught by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada in the authentic Guru Parampara.
This is such a crucial deep dive for anyone who's really seeking clarity on the ultimate nature of the divine.
It really is. Today we are tackling one of the most fundamental theological questions. It's one that defines entire philosophical schools and, often creates a lot of confusion for both new and experienced seekers.
Absolutely. The question is whether God's ultimate nature is personal or impersonal.
Exactly. The core spiritual question for today, and this really dictates your entire approach to spiritual practice, is this: does God, the absolute truth, possess an eternal personal form? Is he Sakar?
Or is he ultimately formless? Pure consciousness, pure light, or Nirakar? And maybe most importantly, if both of these aspects exist, which one is the original, the primary reality?
That last point is everything, isn't it? Because the Vedic conclusion, especially as you see it presented in the Bhagavad Gītā and Śrīmad Bhagavatam and the Brahma-saṁhitā, is just so definitive.
It is. It establishes that God is originally Sakar, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and that the formless aspect, the impersonal Brahman, well, it isn't the ultimate reality.
Right. It's his partial, vast, and dazzling effulgence. I love the analogy of sunshine.
Yes, it's exactly like that. The sunshine is the effulgence of the sun globe, but the globe itself and the sun god within it, that's the source.
So the impersonal is just a partial realization of the personal. I mean, that is a profound shift in perspective for so many people.
It's complete paradigm shift.
So our mission today is to take you step by step through the clear scriptural evidence. We're going to use key verses to systematically establish this truth.
And hopefully leave no doubt about the true identity and nature of the supreme absolute truth. We'll go from the initial question to a clear definition, and then finally we'll look at how Krishna himself refutes the common philosophical errors.
Okay, let's begin. We start our journey, appropriately enough, at the beginning of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gītā. The chapter itself is called Bhakti Yoga.
The yoga of devotion. It's the perfect place to start.
It is. So let's unpack this with the very first verse, Bhagavad Gītā 12.1. Here, Arjuna, who is always the perfect disciple, he acts as our representative.
He does. He's asking on behalf of all of us.
He asks Krishna a direct, intensely practical question about spiritual methodology. It's about how we should prioritize our finite energy in this pursuit of infinite reality.
And Arjuna's directness here is just so crucial. He doesn't just ask about a path. He presents the two most prominent paths of spiritual realization.
The ones practiced since time immemorial, right?
Yes, and by doing that, he essentially forces Krishna to give a clear, comparative, and hierarchical judgment on them. It shows that this philosophical debate between Sakar, the personal, and Nirakar, the impersonal, is ancient.
And that we, as seekers, we need some kind of divine arbitration to resolve it. So the verse itself, Arjuna asks, who are more perfect? Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested?
What's so fascinating here is that he immediately establishes the validity of two sincere spiritual pursuits. He's not dismissing either one out of hand.
No, not at all.
He recognizes two distinct classes of seekers, and both are engaged in a profound form of yoga or spiritual connection.
So what are those two classes?
Well, first, there are those who are focused on worshiping Krishna directly. The verse says, tavam parupasat. Those continuously engaged and absorbed in personal worship, focusing on Krishna's form, his vigraha.
That's the devotional path, the path of Sakar.
Correct. And then second, you have those who are focused on the akaram avyaktam, the imperishable, unmanifest, formless absolute that you read about so much in the Upanishads.
And that would be the path of philosophical speculation, right? The path of jhana that leads to Nirakar realization.
That's the one. So Arjuna puts both on the table.
And I can see why the average seeker, having studied the Vedas, would really struggle with this. On one hand, you have this incredibly grand, abstract, universal idea of Brahman, this unmanifest light. It sounds so big.
It does. It sounds all-encompassing.
But then on the other hand, you have a specific, beautiful, yet apparently localized, personal form of Krishna. The intellectual mind, I think, is often tempted by the seemingly greater scope of the impersonal.
That's a great point. The challenge really lies in understanding what scope truly means here. The Nirakar path tries to realize the absolute by rejecting all material limitations. It's a process of neti-neti, not this, not that.
Just a path of negation.
Yes, and it demands severe mental discipline to focus on something entirely devoid of any perceivable characteristics. But the Sakar path, Bhakti Yoga, is completely different. It accepts that the absolute truth is ultimately a person.
And so realization means establishing a relationship with him.
A dynamic, loving relationship. And you'll notice Arjuna's question isn't asking which one is real. He's asking K Yoga Vitama, who is the most perfect, the most complete, the highest expression of yoga.
Ah, so it's a qualitative comparison. Which path leads to the most comprehensive realization of the absolute truth? That's the key.
That is the key. And this is where the inherent nature of the living entity, of the soul, becomes so relevant. We are all persons, jivas. We're relational beings. Our deepest happiness comes from giving and receiving love.
And the impersonal path seems to almost negate that constitutional desire for relationship.
It does. It forces the soul into an abstract, non-relational existence. But the personal path, it fully engages that desire. It allows you to offer flowers, to sing praises, to hear pastimes, to see the beautiful vigraha.
So it engages the mind, the emotions, the senses, everything in loving service.
The entire being.
So if the ultimate reality is a person, then relating to that person has to be the highest form of connection.
It must be. And because Krishna is Bhagavan, the supreme authority, his answer in the very next verse becomes the final word. It's the divine arbitration that ends centuries of philosophical speculation.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Krishna doesn't hedge. He doesn't give a vague answer. He gives an immediate, clear, and decisive verdict in Bhagavad Gītā 12.2.
He does. He settles the question of which path leads to the highest perfection, and he uses terminology that leaves absolutely no room for ambiguity.
The verse from Śrī Bhagavatam declares, "Those who fix their minds on me in my personal form and are always engaged in worshiping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect."
This is the definitive statement. It establishes the supremacy of personal devotion. Krishna uses the specific term yuktatama.
Which means?
It means most perfect, most elevated, or best versed in yoga. He's not saying the other path is bad. He's saying this one is the most complete. He directly establishes that focusing one's mind maya on his personal form is the superior path.
So why is it superior? It seems to be because of the inclusion of bhakti, of devotion, which is fueled by this Shadvaya Paripeta transcendental, unwavering faith.
That is the profound difference. The intellectual path of impersonalism, it relies so heavily on abstract analysis. You can, I suppose, understand Brahman, but can you love it?
Right. Can you have a relationship with it?
Exactly. When you worship the Supreme Person, Krishna, you engage the whole self, your mind, intellect, emotion, and action in a dynamic, reciprocal relationship. The mind is focused on his beauty, his qualities, his pastimes.
It's a positive, active engagement, and that has to be more satisfying to the soul than just negation.
It's naturally purifying and deeply satisfying. It's like the difference between, say, studying a treaty on governance versus actually meeting and serving the king.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
The knowledge you get from a real relationship is always richer and more complete. And since the soul, the jiva, is constitutionally an eternal servant of God, engaging that position in loving service is the most complete expression of our spiritual nature.
Let's talk more about that phrase, may yovajamanat, complete mental absorption.
She should. Because think about the practical reality. If I ask you to fix your mind on the abstract concept of pure existence or non-duality, what happens?
My mind, which is used to form and sound and color, it would struggle. It would just wander off immediately.
Would struggle immensely, but it's infinitely easier and more natural to fix the mind on the beautiful, specific, and active form of Krishna, the one with the peacock feather and the flute. The mind needs an object of love.
It needs a personality to focus on, a story to engage with.
Yes, and that provides the spiritual sweetness, the rasa. The impersonal path is often described in the scriptures as shuka, which means dry.
Dry? Why?
Because there's no reciprocation. There's no exchange of love. It demands immense austerity. But the personal path, it's full of ananda, bliss, because the devotion itself is enjoyable. The devotee feels spiritual happiness from the very beginning because the Supreme Person reciprocates.
So to summarize the key takeaway from BG 12.2, the path of personal devotion is the highest yoga because it fully engages the soul's constitutional nature.
The desire to love and serve.
And it focuses that energy on the ultimate object of love, the Supreme Person who actually loves back. This confirms that the object of worship has to have a recognizable, worshipable form.
Any philosophy that denies the personal nature of the absolute truth is refuted here by the absolute truth himself. It's the destination, not just a stepping stone on the way to something formless.
Now, Krishna isn't just declaring the superiority of the personal path, he's also incredibly compassionate and practical.
Yes, he knows us. He knows what we embodied souls are capable of.
It's one thing to say that a path is theoretically possible, but it's quite another to explain why the alternative, the Nirakar path, is just so problematic for us. And he gives this practical context in Bhagavad Gītā 12.5.
This verse is a realistic caution. It explains why the Nirakar path, while it might lead to a partial spiritual realization of Brahman, is an extremely difficult, even torturous route for anyone operating within a material body, especially in this day and age.
The verse reads, "For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied."
And the difficulty, the word used is klesha. It arises from a fundamental mismatch. The method contradicts the nature of the practitioner. We have to remember we are dehavat, which means our spiritual self is temporarily wrapped in a material covering.
The body, mind, and false ego.
Exactly. And this whole apparatus is designed by Mahamaya to deal with form, sound, taste, touch, relationship. That's its function.
So the impersonal path requires us to forcibly shut down the natural functioning of our mind and senses.
You're trying to force this complex active instrument, the mind, to fixate on something completely abstract, something devoid of form, feature, or activity, and that creates an immense unnatural strain.
And that strain is the kleshya that Krishna is talking about, the pain and trouble.
It is. The impersonal yogi has to engage in severe austerity, disciplined meditation over many, many lifetimes, and a tremendous intellectual struggle. And because there's no object of inherent spiritual sweetness, no rasa, the practice itself is arid. It becomes a constant, painful process of negation.
I heard a great analogy for this once. Trying to meditate on the formless is like trying to hold back a rapidly flowing river with your bare hands.
That's very good.
You might succeed for a few moments, but the natural flow of material thought, memory, and sensory input is just too strong. But when you have a personal form to focus on, it's like diverting that same river into a beautiful engineered canal.
The energy is channeled naturally and constructively. That's an excellent analogy. The impersonal path doesn't channel the mind. It tries to stop the mind. And for the practitioner, this results in extreme frustration and fatigue.
And there are real philosophical dangers too, aren't there? Those who struggle with the Nirakar path can end up falling back into materialism because they lack a personal anchor.
It's a huge risk. By negating all spiritual forms, they sometimes mistakenly assume that all forms, spiritual and material, are just temporary illusions. This can lead to the dangerous conclusion of Aham Brahmasmi, I am God, without having achieved the purity for true Brahman realization.
They elevate their own identity to the level of the absolute,
confusing the reflected power of their own soul with the unlimited power of the Supreme Soul.
So this verse, 12.5, is really a compassionate warning. Krishna is essentially telling us, look, I've given you the path that works best with your current constitutional limitations. Why choose the rock-strewn mountain path when the devotional highway is open and joyful?
And that highway, the path of personal devotion, it's not only easier and more natural for the embodied soul, but it also results in the full, highest realization of the absolute truth as a person, not just as border light.
So now that the Gita has established the supremacy of the personal path, we need to really define the nature of that supreme person.
We're moving beyond just rejecting the formless idea to a positive, beautiful, and eternal definition of the personal form.
And for this, we turn to a foundational text of the Vaikava Siddhanta, the Brahma-saṁhitā. This text, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rediscovered, contains the prayers of Lord Brahma himself.
And Brahma-saṁhitā 5.1 is the cornerstone. It provides the constitutional definition of Krishna, the Adipuru, the original person, and it's a definition that immediately transcends this whole duality of form versus formless.
This profound verse is known all over the world. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all, he has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes.
Let's break down the philosophical depth here. It starts by establishing authority. Eshvara Parama, Krishna is the supreme controller. No one is greater. But the real nugget is the definition of his form, his vigraha.
The word vigraha itself means form or body, which right away proves he's not formless.
Categorically.
But here's the challenge for the material mind. If he has a body, isn't he limited? Our bodies are like cages. They're limiting factors. If Krishna is unlimited, how can he be contained in a form?
And the answer lies in the spiritual quality of that vigraha. That's the key. His body is sat-cit-ānanda-vigraha. This is the absolute refutation of material limitation. His body isn't made of temporary elements like ours.
Earth, water, fire, air.
Right. It's composed of three transcendental spiritual energies. First, sat, which means eternal existence. Our bodies are as sat, temporary. They're born, they grow, they die.
But Krishna's body is sat. It's perpetual, absolute. It's not subject to the laws of time that he creates.
Exactly. His existence is identical to his form. Second is sit, which means full knowledge or consciousness. Our consciousness is acid, it's ignorant, limited. But Krishna's body is sit.
So every part of his being is fully conscious.
Every single particle, his hands, his feet, his flute, all fully conscious. Where our physical form tends to hide our consciousness, his form expresses his infinite consciousness.
And the third quality?
Ananda, full bliss. Our material bodies are sources of dukkha, suffering, with just flickers of temporary pleasure. But Krishna's body is Ananda. It is the reservoir of all pleasure, all happiness. Every activity, every feature, every moment is saturated with unlimited, inexhaustible bliss.
That completely transforms the concept of a body. It goes from being a limitation to being the full manifestation of his perfection. It means when a devotee sees Krishna's form, they are seeing eternity, infinite knowledge, and endless bliss all at once.
And the sat-cit-ānanda-vigraha also directly explains the relationship between Krishna and the impersonal Brahman. The Brahman is often described as sat, eternal existence, but that's only part of the story.
Because the full definition is sat-cit-ānanda.
Right. The impersonal Brahman is merely the vast, dazzling glow of the sat aspect, maybe with a touch of the sit consciousness, but it completely lacks the ananda. It lacks the bliss and the relationship that are inherent in the personal form.
This brings us back to that sun analogy. It's so helpful. Krishna is the sun globe itself, personal, specific, full of features.
And the Brahman is the sunlight, vast, pervasive, formless, but it doesn't have the defining features or the substance of the globe itself. You can realize the sunlight and know that light exists, but you haven't realized the source of that light.
And the verse confirms his source identity with Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakaran.
He is without beginning, Anadi, which rejects the idea that he was ever born or had to acquire a form. But he is the source of all beginnings, Adi. He is the cause of all causes. Everything, including the material creation, time, space, and even that impersonal effulgence, it all ultimately flows from this singular, supreme personal source.
So the key revelation here is that the highest truth isn't some abstract concept to be mastered with the intellect. It's an eternal, loving person who is the foundation of all reality.
God is not formless. His form is the very definition of existence, knowledge, and bliss.
And that provides the devotee with an inexhaustible foundation for meditation, service, and most importantly, a real relationship.
Exactly.
So if that verse gave us the essential spiritual composition of Krishna's body, the next verse we'll look at, Brahma-saṁhitā 5.33, it adds just staggering, almost unbelievable detail about the attributes of that form.
Yes, it emphasizes its transcendence beyond our material capacity to comprehend. It describes a form that breaks all the rules of our temporal reality. It addresses the great paradox of the absolute.
Which is?
How can the oldest being also be the youngest? How can he be the source of everything yet remain non-dual?
The verse begins with Advaitam Asyutam. It's incredibly descriptive. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is non-dual, infallible, beginningless, and although expanded into unlimited forms, he is the original, and although the oldest, he is a person possessing everlasting youthful beauty.
We need to deep dive into 4 of these critical attributes to really understand why this spiritual form is utterly unique and completely distinct from any material form.
Okay, let's start with the first one, non-dual or Advaita.
For us, there's a clear difference between our physical body and our spiritual self, the soul. Our body is just a tool, a covering. For Krishna, Advaita means there is absolutely no difference between his spiritual body, his actions, and his self.
So when he plays the flute,
the sound, and the musician are all the same spiritual absolute truth. There's no distinction. And this is why devotion to his form, his vigraha, is non-different from devotion to him directly.
I see. And the second attribute is infallible, asyuta.
This means He never changes, never diminishes, and never falls down from his supreme position or perfection. It doesn't matter what role he plays, a child, a warrior, a lover. The form is eternally perfect.
So this refutes the idea that God could somehow be affected by the lower modes of nature, or that his power could wane over time.
Completely. And third, and this is perhaps the most glorious and challenging concept for the material mind, is that he is ever youthful, Navyavana.
This one is stunning. He is the Pura Purua, the oldest person, the original source of everything that exists.
Existing before creation itself.
Yet he is eternally manifested as Navyavana, a fresh, enchanting 16-year-old youth.
That quality is amazing, isn't it? In our world, existence is synonymous with aging, entropy, decay. If you're the oldest, you are the most decrepit.
But Krishna, as the source of time, transcends time's effect.
Yeah.
He remains perpetually in the prime of his youth. This one attribute just demolishes the material misconception that anything eternal has to be static or old or vague.
His eternity is dynamic and eternally fresh. It ensures that the object of our meditation is never boring, never decaying, and always capable of generating new and dynamic relationships, new rasas.
And the fourth attribute we see here is his expansive nature, Anantarupam.
Unlimited transcendental forms. He possesses infinite forms, like the four-armed Narayan in Vaikuntha, or Vamana, or Lord Rama, all the different avatars.
Yet the Brahma-saṁhitā concludes that the original root form is Govinda.
Yes, the sweet, ever-youthful master of Vrindavana. This establishes the hierarchy of forms. All other forms emanate from this singular, supremely attractive personal origin.
And finally, the verse offers hope to the devotee. It says, he is difficult to find through dry intellectual study of the Vedas, but easily obtained through pure devotion.
Veda durlabham adurlabham atma bhakta. This reinforces the Gita's verdict. The path of loving service is not only superior, but it's the only means to access the full realization of the beautiful personal nature of the Absolute.
The impact here is clear. The most complete spiritual realization isn't seeing some abstract light. It's the intimate realization of the eternal, personal, ever-youthful form of Govinda.
If you are seeking the ultimate truth, you must seek the personality behind the light.
Now that we've positively defined Krishna's eternal spiritual form, we have to address the philosophical roadblocks. Why is there still so much resistance to this idea of a supreme person?
And Krishna himself addresses two of these critical misconceptions in the Bhagavad Gītā. These are the verses where he actively defends the integrity of his transcendental identity against both the materialists and the impersonalists.
He starts with the error of materializing the divine in BG 9.11.
Yes.
Mhm.
The verse says, "Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be."
This addresses that common mistake of projection, doesn't it? When Krishna appears, say on Earth 5,000 years ago, or as a temple deity, the Vigraha, he appears in a form that resembles ours.
A form suitable for relationship. But those who are too materially conditioned, they see the physical resemblance and they commit the error of materializing him. They think, he looks like us, he eats, he walks, he must be an ordinary man.
Just a great historical figure, maybe, but not God?
And Krishna calls these persons mushas, ignorant or foolish.
That's such a strong word. Why?
Because they fail to grasp his parambhavam, his supreme transcendental nature which exists eternally beyond the material creation. They confuse the container with the content. They see the human-like form, the manutanum, but they miss the spiritual quality.
Because their own human-like form is temporary, they just assume his must be too.
They project their limitations onto him. The key teaching here is that his form is entirely spiritual. It is not bound by matter, even though it may be perceivable by the senses of a pure devotee.
Okay, so that's the first error. What about the second one?
The second major error is even more critical and subtle, as it directly attacks the philosophical core of impersonalism. This concerns the very origin of God's form, and it's found in Bhagavad Gītā 7.24.
You're right. This is the definitive philosophical counterpunch. Krishna explicitly refutes the idea of transformation, that the impersonal becomes the personal.
It's perhaps the most crucial conclusion against the impersonalist viewpoint in the entire Gita.
The verse reads, "Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme."
This is aimed squarely at that idea you often hear in philosophical circles. God is actually Nirakar, unmanifest, but he temporarily appears in a physical body to help humanity.
That viewpoint assumes the personal form is just a temporary disguise, a concession, while the truest, highest reality is the formless void.
Right. And if the highest truth is formless, then any form God takes must be temporary, subject to illusion. But Krishna immediately rejects this. The crucial implication is that God does not become personal. He is eternally, immutably, and imperishably personal.
His form is not an acquired or temporary feature.
No, it is avyam anuttamam, his higher, inexhaustible, and peerless nature. Think about it. If God transformed from formless to form, he would be imperfect. He'd be subject to change, subordinate to time. But as the supreme controller, he is asuta, infallible.
So he confirms his existence as a person is absolute and eternal.
Historically, this point is the fundamental difference between the impersonal schools and the Vaikya tradition. And here, Krishna sides definitively with the personalists, calling those who hold the transformation theory abudaya, unintelligent.
By unintelligent.
Because they miss the highest spiritual realization, which is the bliss and love inherent in relating to the Supreme Person. They stop at the partial light, the Brahman, and fail to reach the sun god himself, Bhagavan.
So these two verses, 9.11 and 7.24, they combine to establish a powerful conclusion. Not only is Krishna's form transcendental, meaning not material,
but it is also eternal, meaning not acquired or temporary. This provides the complete philosophical basis for focusing our devotion on the beautiful, specific form of Krishna.
we have established that God is eternally personal and blissful, and we've refuted the errors of those who deny his form. But this leaves one big question hanging.
Why isn't it universally apparent?
Exactly. If the truth is so clear and beautiful, why do so many sincere seekers still struggle to accept it or see him? Bhagavad Gītā 7.25 provides the essential answer.
This is where we introduce the concept of the divine veil. It explains that the realization of the Supreme Personality isn't achievable through mere intellectual effort or material eyesight. It's a matter of divine grace and spiritual qualification. It's a gift, not a right.
The verse states, I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible.
This introduces the profound concept of Yogamaya, the internal divine potency of the Lord. And it's so important to distinguish this from Mahama,
which is the external potency that binds us to the material world.
Yes. Mahamaya makes us forget our relationship with God. But Yogamaya is the potency that allows the Lord to manage his manifestation and interactions with the universe. It has a dual function.
It reveals and conceals at the same time.
Precisely. For the muchas, the faithless or ignorant, it acts as a screen. When Krishna appears, Yogamaya covers his supreme opulence so that they can only see him as an ordinary person, and that fulfills their own desire to deny him.
But for the pure devotee, it's completely different.
For the devotee, Yogamaya acts as a benevolent facilitator. It allows Krishna to perform his intimate pastimes, his lila in Vandamana, where the devotees can treat him naturally, as a friend, a son, a lover, without being crushed by his infinite godhood.
That's the most important insight. The covering isn't meant to keep the devotee out. It's meant to facilitate the relationship. If Mother Yashoda had to constantly remember that Krishna was the cause of all causes, she could never have bound him with a rope.
She couldn't have. Yogamaya allows for that divine intimacy by temporarily concealing his full majesty from those who are engaged in loving service. So the core mechanism here is selective viewing.
So knowledge of the personal form isn't attained through material effort alone. It's attained through divine grace, which is granted to those who show genuine surrender and devotion.
When a person purifies their consciousness through bhakti yoga and surrenders to Krishna, Yogamaya lifts the veil, and the devotee can truly understand and appreciate that the beautiful, eternal youth standing before them is, in fact, the cause of all causes, the ultimate object of worship.
This brings the whole systematic journey full circle, doesn't it? We started with Arjuna's question, established the supremacy of the personal path, defined that form as sat-cit-ānanda-vigraha, refuted the errors, and now we understand why this truth isn't universally apparent.
Because it requires genuine devotion to pierce the divine veil of Yogamaya. The path is not merely intellectual, it is deeply devotional. The ultimate truth is realized by striving to relate lovingly to the Supreme Person who already has an eternal form of bliss and knowledge.
So let's synthesize this powerful and systematic conclusion that we've drawn from the Bhagavad Gītā and the Brahma-saṁhitā.
Grounding ourselves firmly in the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and the Gacchaya-Vaikava-siddhanta,
We follow the scriptural evidence to establish that the ultimate absolute reality is fundamentally and eternally personal.
Firstly, God is eternally Sakar, a personal being with a spiritual eternal form identified as Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the ultimate reality.
Secondly, his form is spiritual, described as sat-cit-ānanda-vigraha, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. It's not different from his spirit, with qualities like Advaita and Navayovana that transcend all material laws.
Thirdly, the path of devotion, bhakti, to this personal form is declared by Krishna himself as the yuktatama, the most perfect, most complete, and most natural path for the embodied soul.
And finally, the Nirakar realization, the impersonal Brahman, is not the ultimate truth. It is a partial realization of God's vast, undifferentiated energetic expansion.
It is merely the brilliant, effulgent light emanating from the ultimate divine person, Krishna, and is therefore subordinate to him.
This systematic study clarifies that one-line essence. God is not an abstract void or a temporary manifestation.
He is an eternal, conscious, blissful, divine person, the source of both the personal form, Bhagavan, and the formless light, Brahman. This knowledge is essential for moving beyond philosophical confusion and beginning a genuine, loving spiritual life rooted in a real relationship.
And this knowledge fundamentally alters the trajectory of your spiritual journey. It offers a clear, positive, and deeply satisfying object for your eternal love and service, ensuring your pursuit of the absolute truth is full of ananda and purpose. If you found this humble service meaningful, kindly like this video and share your realizations in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel to receive regular updates of such transcendental and divine knowledge. Also, share this with your friends and family, so that this divine message may reach many more hearts and inspire many more souls.
For your convenience, if you would like to read through all the Shloka and scriptural references quoted in this humble service, they have been mentioned in the video description. Kindly have a look. Hare Krishna.